going to see where that stone mouth leads.
Help me! Help me!
To the boats, quickly!
Before CGI, before green screens, before even Star Wars, there was the 7th Voyage of Sinbad. Released in 1958, this Technicolor fantasy didn't just tell a story. It invented movie magic, with Cyclops, dragons, and sword-fighting skeletons brought to life through Ray Harryhausen's genius. It turned childhood imagination into living, breathing spectacle. And behind all that wonder, a chaotic mix of heat-blasted sets, melting monsters, and one very overworked animator. These are 16 weird facts about the 7th Voyage of Sinbad 1958, the film that made fantasy feel real. Number 1. The film that made Ray Harryhausen a legend. Before the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, Ray Harryhausen was known only to sci-fi fans for films like It Came From Beneath the Sea and the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. But this was the first time he tackled a full-color fantasy adventure, and it completely changed his career. With Sinbad, Harryhausen perfected his stop-motion Dynamation process, blending animated monsters with live-action actors so seamlessly that audiences thought they were watching real creatures. Critics were stunned, and the movie became a benchmark for visual effects across Hollywood. From that point on, Harryhausen wasn't just an animator, he was the man who made the impossible move. Number 2. The title wasn't always The 7th Voyage. When the film was first announced, it went by the very literal title Sinbad and the Cyclops. The script mostly centered on the island encounter, with no grand sense of journey or scale. But that name didn't sound legendary, and Columbia Pictures wanted something that could sit beside the biblical epics and sword and sandal hits of the late 50s. So, the studio's marketing team brainstormed a fix. They decided that adding 7th Voyage gave it a sense of destiny, a mysterious final chapter in a long line of adventures that never existed. The number 7, tied to luck and mythology, made it sound ancient and important. It worked like a charm. Audiences walked in thinking they were witnessing Sinbad's ultimate odyssey, even though the first 6 voyages lived only in their imagination. Number 3. The first Sinbad film shot in color and widescreen. Until 1958, Sinbad's adventures existed only in black and white serials or dusty storybooks. But the 7th Voyage of Sinbad changed all that, bringing the sailor's world to life in bright Technicolor and widescreen cinemascope. The movie's palette, with blazing reds, golden sand, and deep ocean blues, was designed to make audiences feel like they'd stepped inside an Arabian painting. This leap wasn't just about beauty, it was a marketing weapon. Competing with television, which was still black and white at the time, studios used color as a way to lure people back into theaters. Harryhausen's creatures, from the Cyclops to the dragon, suddenly looked more lifelike and terrifying than ever. The gamble paid off. Audiences were hypnotized by the spectacle, and critics praised the storybook come-to-life look. Fantasy films would never go back to grayscale again.
I fought with the Cyclops, and here I stand alive as you. This man was at my side, and he sails with me again. Well, what'll it be? We need 25 men. Freedom or the hangman's noose?
They'll not put a rope round Golar's neck. He'll spit in the Cyclops' eye first.
That's right. Come on, Simon.
Let's go!
Number 4. Dynamation was just a clever illusion. Posters bragged about a brand new invention, Dynamation, claiming it was a revolutionary breakthrough in monster effects. Audiences imagined some mysterious new machine was behind the magic. But in truth, it was all marketing. There was no special device, no futuristic process, just Ray Harryhausen, a projector, and endless patience. The so-called Dynamation technique was simply a clever blend of stop-motion animation with live-action footage, using rear projection and carefully matted frames. Harryhausen animated his monsters one frame at a time in front of a screen playing the live actors, making them appear to exist in the same space. By slapping a flashy name on an old idea, Columbia sold moviegoers on the myth of technological progress. But that myth worked. People believed they were witnessing the dawn of a new era in cinema.
Marissa.
Sinbad, here I am. Sinbad, look, here on the pillow. Look closely.
No, it cannot be so.
It is.
Number 5. The Cyclops almost roasted its own performer. To create the towering one-eyed monster, Harryhausen designed a full-size partial suit for close-up shots, mostly the legs and torso, while the rest was animated through stop motion. But during one test under the blistering studio lights, the thick rubber costume began to smoke. The heat built up so fast that the performer inside nearly fainted before tearing it off in a panic. The materials, made from foam rubber and latex, were never meant for prolonged use under those temperatures. Still, the design was so impressive that Harryhausen kept the burnt remnants and used them as references for future creatures. That incident turned into legend on set, proof that even a mythical beast could fall victim to the fury of 1950s studio lighting. Number 6. The skeleton duel took 3 months for 45 seconds of film. It's one of the movie's most jaw-dropping moments. Sinbad locked in a sword fight with a living skeleton. But what audiences saw as a blink and you'll miss it scene took Ray Harryhausen over 3 months to complete. Every sword swing, every parry, every footstep had to be matched perfectly with the live-action footage, frame by agonizing frame. To sync it up, Harryhausen used a stopwatch, filming just a few seconds of animation each day. The actor who performed the fight on set had to memorize the rhythm of an enemy that didn't exist yet, shadow dueling an invisible skeleton with total precision. When it finally hit theaters, audiences gasped. The illusion was so seamless that many thought they'd hired a contortionist in a costume. But nope, it was pure, meticulous stop-motion magic. Number 7. The genie was played by a 12-year-old boy. Most people remember the genie of the lamp as a booming, all-powerful figure. But in the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, the magical being was a kid. Actor Richard Eyre, only 12 at the time, played Barani, the young genie trapped in the lamp, giving the role an innocence and charm that older actors couldn't have pulled off. Eyre wasn't new to the camera. He'd already appeared in several films and TV shows. But Sinbad was his biggest role yet. The director wanted someone who felt like a wish granted, not a thunder god, and Eyre's calm, sincere delivery made the genie feel genuinely human. It was an unusual choice for 1950s fantasy, but it worked perfectly. Instead of another loud special effect, audiences got a soft-spoken spirit who made the adventure feel personal, a boy's soul caught between magic and freedom. Number 8. Kerwin Mathews wasn't the first choice for Sinbad. Before Kerwin Mathews ever picked up a sword, the role of Sinbad was almost given to Lex Barker, the actor famous for playing Tarzan. Barker had the rugged physique and heroic look Columbia Pictures loved, but he also came with a much bigger price tag. When negotiations dragged, the studio turned to Mathews, a fresh-faced contract actor eager to prove himself. Mathews wasn't Middle Eastern, and by today's standards, the casting was questionable. But in 1958, Columbia marketed him as a storybook hero, the clean-cut sailor of every child's imagination. Harryhausen himself approved, saying Mathews moved with a kind of controlled grace that made animating monsters around him easier. The gamble paid off. Mathews' performance struck the right balance between charm and courage, anchoring the fantasy even when he was fighting invisible creatures that didn't exist yet. By now, you've seen monsters, magic, and movie tricks that pushed 1950s cinema to its limits, but the wildest stories are still ahead. From melted dragons to forbidden legends, things on this voyage are about to get mythically weird. So before we dive back into the chaos, make sure you subscribe and join our crew of old school movie hunters. Because what's coming next? Even Sinbad himself wouldn't believe it. Number 9. Spain stood in for ancient Baghdad. Though the story takes place across the Arabian Seas, the entire movie was filmed in Spain, mostly around the coast of Majorca and the old city of Granada. Columbia Pictures realized that shooting on sound stages in Hollywood would blow the budget. So they packed up the cast and crew and turned the Mediterranean into the Middle East. The result was a visual feast. Spain's sun-bleached cliffs, stone fortresses, and ancient ruins looked exotic enough for Western audiences to believe they were seeing far-off lands. The Spanish government, eager for tourism, even lent the production access to historical sites normally closed to film crews. So, while Sinbad's ship may have sailed for Baghdad, every wave, rock, and palace was actually a corner of 1950s Spain, a cinematic illusion as convincing as Harryhausen's monsters themselves. Number 10. A real cobra was almost used on set for the famous Snake Woman scene, where a dancer transforms into a half-human, half-serpent creature. The crew first planned to use a real cobra. The idea was to mix live snake footage with stop-motion animation for added realism. But once the handlers brought the cobra on set, things got dangerous fast. The snake wouldn't cooperate, and the heat from the lights made it increasingly aggressive. Harryhausen quickly shut it down and built an animated serpent instead, sculpted in latex and wire. He then combined it with footage of actress Patricia Laffin to create the illusion of transformation, one of the earliest examples of live-action blending with creature animation. It ended up being the right call. The scene became one of the film's most hypnotic moments, and no one on set had to risk becoming the cobra's next meal. Number 11. The soundtrack almost got replaced with stock music. Today, Bernard Herrmann's booming score is considered one of the greatest fantasy soundtracks of all time. But during production, Columbia Pictures nearly threw it out. Executives thought Herrmann's music was too expensive and considered swapping it for a cheaper pre-recorded stock library used in B-movies. Harryhausen and producer Charles Schneer fought hard to keep Herrmann, arguing that his music gave the monster soul. Herrmann, who had already scored Psycho and Vertigo, used layered brass, swirling strings, and exotic percussion to make each creature feel alive. The Cyclops didn't just move, it roared through the orchestra. When test screenings rolled out, audiences loved the score so much that the studio backed off. It became the sound of Sinbad's world, bold, dangerous, and dripping with adventure. Number 12. The dragon scene literally melted the set. When Harryhausen animated the massive fire-breathing dragon, the studio's lighting crew had to blast the miniature set with scorching hot lamps to get the right shadows and reflections. But those same lights started to melt the latex dragon mid-scene. Its wings sagged, and parts of its tail began sticking to the miniature castle walls. Harryhausen spent hours scraping and reshaping the creature between takes, cooling it with fans and repainting the damaged sections. It was painstaking, old-school problem-solving. No CGI, no shortcuts. The final sequence looks effortless on screen, but behind the camera, it smelled like burning rubber. Every puff of dragonfire came at the cost of singed sets and a very sweaty animator. Number 13. The Cyclops' roar was built from animal chaos. That deep, echoing growl of the Cyclops wasn't just one sound, it was many. Ray Harryhausen and his sound team layered recordings from a Los Angeles zoo, combining tiger growls, camel grunts, and even elephant bellows played in reverse. The result was a sound that felt both beastly and unnatural, the voice of something that shouldn't exist. Sound design back then was all physical, no digital editing, no easy mixing. Technicians literally spliced magnetic tape, slowing it down or speeding it up by hand until they found the perfect blend. The final roar shook theaters, adding weight to a creature that, in reality, was only a few inches tall. It's a small detail that proved a big truth about Harryhausen's work. Every monster he made didn't just look alive, it sounded alive too. Number 14. It inspired the next generation of dreamers. When the 7th Voyage of Sinbad hit theaters, a whole generation of young moviegoers walked out wanting to make monsters of their own. Among them, future legends like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Peter Jackson, and Tim Burton. Each later credited Ray Harryhausen's work as the spark that made them fall in love with visual effects. Lucas once said that watching Sinbad opened his eyes to what movies could do, while Jackson kept Harryhausen's films on a loop as a kid, studying every frame like scripture. The skeleton fight alone inspired countless stop-motion homages across decades of cinema. So while Sinbad entertained the 1950s, it secretly built the foundation for the entire modern fantasy genre. Every lightsaber duel, every CGI creature, every world brought to life on screen, they all trace back to that one-eyed Cyclops and a man with infinite patience. Number 15. It was banned in parts of the Middle East. While the movie was a hit across Europe and the US, not everyone welcomed Sinbad's latest voyage. In several Middle Eastern countries, the 7th Voyage of Sinbad was banned shortly after release. Censors claimed the film mixed sacred Arabian folklore with sorcery and false idols, portraying genies, magic lamps, and mythical beasts in a way that clashed with local religious values. The irony was hard to miss. A movie inspired by Arabian Nights getting banned in the very region that birthed the tales. For Columbia Pictures, it was more of a publicity headache than a financial loss, since their main market was the West. Still, that controversy added a strange layer of myth to the film itself. It wasn't just a fantasy anymore. It became a forbidden legend in some parts of the world, making Sinbad's 7th Voyage feel even more dangerous. Number 16. One voyage became 3. The success of the 7th Voyage of Sinbad was so massive that Columbia Pictures immediately wanted more, and Ray Harryhausen was ready to deliver. What began as a one-off fantasy adventure turned into a full-blown trilogy spanning 2 more decades. It was followed by the Golden Voyage of Sinbad in 1973 and Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger in 1977, each bigger, bolder, and packed with new stop-motion marvels. Harryhausen refined his craft with every sequel, giving audiences everything from 6-armed goddesses to saber-toothed cats. Yet, no matter how advanced the effects became, nothing ever quite matched the magic and innocence of that first voyage. It proved something powerful. Even in an age obsessed with progress, audiences never stopped chasing the wonder of that first Cyclops step onto the sand. The 7th Voyage of Sinbad wasn't just another fantasy film. It was the moment imagination broke free of its limits. With stop-motion beasts, blazing colors, and a score that thundered like the gods, it turned a simple adventure into a timeless myth. Every frame was handmade, every creature a small miracle, and every mistake a step towards cinematic legend. Ray Harryhausen didn't have a studio full of animators or digital tools, just a camera, a model, and an impossible dream. And somehow, that was enough to inspire an entire generation of filmmakers to believe in magic again. So, which of these 16 weird facts surprised you the most? Tell us below. And don't forget to subscribe for more hidden stories from the golden age of monsters, myths, and movie madness.